Week 2, Lesson 2, Little Nemo. After Hogan's Alley and the Yellow Kid caught a lot of people's attentions, the next big comic of note was Winsor McCay's Little Nemo in Slumberland. The comic was a full-page one that ran once a week. It lasted from 1905 until 1926, and was a huge step up in showing the public what the medium was capable of. Little Nemo was a story about a child who dreamt about the same universe every night, and it was the first critically acclaimed newspaper comic. It dealt with fantastical realms, but wasn't trying to make people believe that it ignored logic or science, because everything was revealed to be a dream. This meant that people could transform into things, that giants could exist beside dwarves, that the moon could be made of people, or inanimate objects could become animated. Let's look at the first page. We immediately see that it's split into 13 panels. After the first panel, all the others are numbered, with their numbers underneath the panels. You have to remember, at this point in history, 1905, people weren't used to the comic book medium, and it was important for them to understand what they were looking at. Some of the panels have different colored backgrounds, which grab the reader's attention. In the title panel, we see a giant bearded man looking at a clown who appears tiny next to him. Above him, the title says, Little Nemo in Slumberland. Red columns beside him, classical architecture behind him, and the olive wreath on his head are all meant for us to associate him with a Greek or Roman god. One probably known for his beard, like Zeus or Poseidon, or potentially even Morpheus. His Majesty requests the presence of Little Nemo. The minion looks like a clown. He has a ridiculously tall hat, a strange red object like a clown's nose on the back of his hat, overly long coattails, giant buttons, and his suit has all the primary colors on it. The next panel is counterintuitive. It turns out that you're supposed to read the text underneath the panel before reading the speech balloon in the panel. Little Nemo had just fallen asleep when an Oomph appeared, who said, "You are requested to appear before His Majesty Morpheus of Slumberland." Again, our minds fill in that the clown-like man on the first panel is an Oomph. What is an Oomph? We don't know. But we catch him saying, "And I've brought the little spotted night horse for you to ride, but you mustn't whip him or drive him too fast. Do you hear?" This panel shows us the size difference between the characters. Our minds see that Nemo is the size of a small child, between the ages of 4 to 6. The Oomph is the size of a fully grown man. Next panel. Nemo was surprised as well as delighted to receive the king's invitation, so he scrambled out of bed and mounted the prancing pony, which now appeared. His name is Samus, and he's as gentle as can be. Panel 3. We now see Nemo has mounted the horse. This action was described but not shown in the previous panel. Our mind creates a pacing on which Nemo gets on that horse. Slumberland is a long way off, through many miles of weird scenes, said Oomph. But be good to your horse, and you will arrive there safe and sound. Then, in Oomph's speech bubble, Slumberland is the most wonderful place in the sky. You mustn't miss a single thing. See it all. Now, before we go back to the next panel, what do you notice about the background? It's gone. The realistic setting in the previous two panels are gone, and if we look, the color yellow starts to become more noticeable on the right of the panel. Next panel. After traveling some thousands of miles, we meet the Oomph in disguise, who cautioned him, again, to be careful about speeding his faithful mount. Gracious, what's that? Be kind to him, I warn you. We now have a warmer and more intense orangey reddish color in the background. The horse is in a running position, so we can assume that he's running in the sky. As we learned in the text, the OOMP has the ability to change shape. Think of how much text you'd have to write to properly describe the scene and all the detail to the reader. And without seeing the colors, would it have the same impact as reading it in prose style here? Next panel. Nemo obeyed until he came up with a green kangaroo who challenged him to a race. He accepted because he thought it would be easy to win with Samus. The blue kangaroo is being ridden by a monkey. "I'll race you to Moontown, what do you say?" he says. In the background there is a cooler blue now, although it gets darker as the panel moves to the right. On the right end of the panel, we see the circles and splotches begin to emerge. Next panel. The background is dark blue. It's dusk or early nighttime. Our minds now have enough information to piece together that the white circles and spiky circles are supposed to be stars. Around Nemo are a rabbit riding a pig and a frog flying what looks to be a cougar. The position of Samus makes it look like she's jumping over the star. When he found the race was to be a free-for-all hurdle race with all manner of strange-looking creatures also contesting, he proceeded to withdraw from it. As we can see, no speech bubbles are really necessary for this panel. Next panel. The intense of the background immediately catches the reader's eye, as there were even more stars in the background. Nemo and his horse are centered in the panel. Nemo is seen holding back the reins as Samus' momentum is knocking him back. Below him is a cricket riding a goat, and behind him a squirrel riding a camel. The text goes, "Not so with Samus. Her spunk was up. Nemo found her beyond his control and running away. Try as he might, Nemo could not hold her back." Next panel. Our eyes are a bit more relaxed because of the blue background. There are a lot of stars still, and we see Nemo has been thrown from his horse. The horse is falling down. It's clearly tripped, probably over the star. All the other racers can be seen moving off panel. The text says, "They fairly flew through the sky until Samus stumbled on a star. Nemo clutched at the saddle, but could not hold fast, so over he went." Next panel. First thing that we should notice is that Nemo's white clothes contrasting against a black background. There are lots of stars in this panel. Text. "Down, down, down, he shot through miles and miles of space." I wonder what the OOMP will say. Oh! Next panel. Over and over he turned in his descent, causing intense anguish. We see less stars on this panel. Nemo is almost completely upside down, and his head is facing the bottom of the page. Next panel. The stars are gone. It's just Nemo against the blackness. His eyes are looking to the reader. The text goes, "And becoming so dizzy, he thought he was going to die. He began to scream." "Oh, Papa! Oh, Mama!" Now, we reach the final panel with the text saying, "When he awoke." Nemo is in an awkward position. His mouth is open in surprise, and he is looking at the reader. We see the bed and the wall behind him to establish that Nemo is clearly in his reality and not a dream. The instant relief in immediately escaping the intense situation by waking up is supposed to be humorous, and our minds piece the situation together. He dreamed he was falling because he was falling out of bed. The reader realizes that Nemo is not in any danger and is relieved, making the entire page a fun read. So, as you can tell, there's a lot of things going on here. The layouts and techniques are much more complex than anything we've seen so far in this course. Little Nemo would end each page with a panel of him waking up in bed, but otherwise the stories would have a lot of continuity to them. Characters were introduced and stayed around. Action scenes would be continued over the weeks. The comic developed its own lore, which it stuck to, with different creatures and what they could do. It was the first real example of world building seen in the comics art form. You may have also noticed that every panel on this page the reader's view of Nemo is from a similar distance at a similar angle. This is something that the series keeps consistent through most of its pages. While it gives Little Nemo a recognizable feel, if you read a dozen pages consecutively, your mind may become bored with the lack of diversity. This stagnant view is one of the techniques that really ages the comic, which is a shame, because otherwise Winsor McCay's work here was completely ahead of its time. Little Nemo is likely the first comic that was ever adapted into a stage play, and went on to get its own animated movie and video game. The comic was held with such high regard that some of the original prints are currently on display in the Louvre Museum in Paris, making it the first comic ever to be displayed there. Winsor McCay went on to pioneer the animation medium with 2 short silent films, one being Little Nemo and the other being Gertie the Dinosaur. Both were hugely influential on how animation was done, and Gertie the Dinosaur was one of the early influences of a young artist named Walt Disney. So why was Little Nemo important for this course? Because it was the first critically praised newspaper comic, where there was clear artistic merit behind it. It wasn't trying to tell a joke or sell you something, it was trying to tell a story that involved many different adventures of Nemo and his friends in Slumberland. The comic seemed to be ignored or forgotten for a few decades. This is probably because of lack of availability. The comic has since entered public domain, and we're starting to have some wonderful collections available, and comic fans are rediscovering the brilliance of McCay's masterpiece. Questions to contemplate. Why is it important to limit the fantasy to Nemo's dreams? Do you think that Little Nemo in Slumberland would have been as well received if the adventures didn't take place in his dreams, but in an actual fantasy world?